Remember that crooked yellow believe sign Ted taped above the locker room door? Or that pink biscuit box he left for Rebecca each morning? Behind the mustache sat a show full of near misses. Today we're counting down 15 weird facts you never knew about Ted Lasso. Number 15. The Ted Lasso most of us know is warm, folksy, and endlessly optimistic. That version almost never existed. In Jason Sudeikis' own words, the original 2013 character was a yeller and screamer, like a Bobby Knight type, clueless, brash, and played almost entirely for fish-out-of-water laughs. The reason is simple: he was never created for television. In 2013, NBC Sports acquired the rights to broadcast the English Premier League in the United States. To market that deal to a country that still largely called it soccer, they needed a hook. Jason Sudeikis, Brendan Hunt, and Joe Keeley, who had first invented the character years earlier at the Amsterdam comedy troupe Boom Chicago, delivered a 3-minute promo called An American Coach in London. A sequel followed in 2014. The Ted in those promos was loud, patronizing, and almost entirely the joke. Here is what changed everything. When the team reimagined Ted for Apple TV Plus several years later, producer Bill Lawrence pushed to fundamentally soften the character. His argument was simple: vulnerability and genuine warmth were the ingredients the commercial version entirely lacked. That single tonal pivot from bumbling punchline to genuine empath is the creative decision the entire series rests on. Without that shift, Ted Lasso is a throwaway ad. With it, he becomes one of the most beloved characters of the past decade. And that transformation almost never happened, because the idea sat untouched in a drawer for 2 full years. Number 14. Here is a fact that puts the entire show in a different light. After the NBC promos went viral, Jason Sudeikis did not race to turn Ted Lasso into a television series. He did nothing. According to a Sports Illustrated profile, it was his then-partner Olivia Wilde who suggested around 2015 that he develop Ted into something longer, and it was her encouragement that finally got him moving. Sudeikis, Brendan Hunt, and Joe Keeley wrote a pilot and sketched out a first season in 2015. Then it sat. For 2 years, the project went nowhere. The breakthrough came when Sudeikis started playing pickup basketball with Scrubs creator Bill Lawrence, who read the pilot, fell in love with it, and signed on as co-creator. That partnership made the project viable. Apple TV Plus picked it up in October 2019. The timeline matters. This is roughly a 6 to 7 year journey from a throwaway sports ad to a streaming phenomenon. And the catalyst at the beginning of that road was not a network executive or a studio development deal. It was a suggestion from a partner during a moment of creative inertia. Sudeikis has been careful in interviews to say that his separation from Will did not inspire the show. The show predated the split, but her early encouragement is on the record, and without it, Ted Lasso may never have moved past a couple of funny promos. One of those early creative sessions, incidentally, invented the show's most quoted speech. Number 13. It is one of the show's most beloved moments. Ted pulls Sam aside during a rough patch and tells him that the happiest animal on Earth is a goldfish, because it has a 10-second memory. The delivery is so warm and spontaneous, it almost feels like something Sudeikis said in the moment. It was not. The line appears in Season 1, Episode 2, and it is fully scripted, a product of the writer's room. That matters because the character of Ted is explicitly inspired by Jason Sudeikis' real high school basketball coach, Donnie Campbell at Shawnee Mission West in Kansas, who opened every practice with a short story designed to teach a character trait. Sudeikis has spoken about Campbell in interviews, including on The Today Show, describing Ted as a fella from a small town in Kansas who spoke in those aphorisms. Here is the wrinkle. Campbell has confirmed publicly that the goldfish line was not one of his. It is a writer's room invention, not genuine Kansas coaching folklore. That separation between the man who inspired the character and the lines the show invented for him is worth knowing. Every Ted-ism feels like distilled Midwestern coaching wisdom. Some of it is real. Some of it was made up in a room in Los Angeles. and one very real football villain shaped the show's angriest character in a way nobody intended to keep. Number 12. There is something deeply satisfying about the name Roy Kent. It sounds exactly like a scowling, permanently furious Premier League veteran should sound. It also almost had a completely different name, because when the writing team first invented the character, they built him around real-life Irish football icon Roy Keane, dropped in a placeholder name, and then simply forgot to replace it. Co-creator Brendan Hunt has recalled asking the room as production neared, guys. He's still named Roy Kent. We're not going to keep his name Roy Kent, right? The answer from the room was essentially, why would we change it? Roy Kent is great. And so, Roy Kent it stayed, unchanged, all the way to cameras rolling. Brett Goldstein, who plays the character, has cited a range of additional creative influences, including Oliver Twist's Bill Sikes, The Muppets, and filmmaker Celine Sciamma. Meanwhile, the real Roy Keane, when shown clips by Sky Sports, played it completely straight, saying he had no idea what anyone was talking about. A lazy placeholder became one of television's great character names. Roy's post-playing arc, the grudging transition into coaching and punditry, mirrors Keane's own real career almost exactly. That parallel was built into the character from the start and paid off across all 3 seasons. The actor playing Roy, though, was not hired to act at all. Number 11. This one is genuinely remarkable. Brett Goldstein was not hired to play Roy Kent. He was hired to write the show. He sat in the writer's room helping build the series. And somewhere around the 5th episode, he had a quiet realization he kept entirely to himself. He thought he might be Roy Kent. He said nothing inside the room. But after the writer's room wrapped, he quietly assembled a self-tape of 5 scenes and emailed it directly to Bill Lawrence and Jason Sudeikis with a message that reportedly said something like, "If this is awkward, or if this is awful, pretend you never got this, and I promise I will never bring it up again." Casting director Theo Park has noted that the production had been looking primarily at Irish actors and comedians for the role. Goldstein's tape changed that conversation immediately. He got the part. The result was 2 consecutive Emmy wins for supporting actor in a comedy series, in 2021 and 2022. What makes this story work beyond the headline is what it means about the performance. Goldstein had spent months thinking about Roy Kent from the inside, as a writer. When he stepped in front of the camera, he was drawing on creative work he had done long before any audition existed. That double perspective shows in every frame. He was not the only cast member who had to fight his way into the series. Number 10. Nick Mohammed, who plays Nate the Kitman turned coach turned cautionary tale, nearly did not take the role. Not once. Twice. The process started with Mohammed reading for the role of Higgins, the club's genial head of operations. It was not the right fit. When casting director Theo Park then approached him about Nate, Mohammed declined, citing concerns that the character was too similar to his work on his own British comedy series Intelligence. He passed. Park's team persisted. They came back and revealed the full arc they were planning for Nate, which was more than they typically disclosed in a casting conversation. The pitch was that Nate was not just a meek kit boy. By the end of season 1, he becomes a coach. They were being deliberately vague about the darker turns waiting in season 2. Mohammed reconsidered and accepted. What followed was the series' most complex character journey across 3 seasons, taking a beloved background figure through ambition, betrayal, and eventual reckoning. Jason Sudeikis has spoken about watching audition tapes with the sound off, looking for what he calls an essence rather than a type. The Nate casting reflects the same instinct at work from the other side, a production willing to pursue a specific person even when that person kept saying no. The same stubbornness shaped the show's most visible recurring prop. Number 9. It became the visual symbol of the entire series. It wound up recreated in the Oval Office by President Joe Biden. It generated merchandise, tattoos, and fan art on a scale nobody anticipated. And the man who wrote it into existence insists there is nothing particularly interesting about where it came from. Jason Sudeikis has said the believe sign was, in his words, just a thing I saw in my head and typed into our first draft of the pilot. He has actively resisted the idea that it carries deep personal meaning, telling Collider, "Religion is big, so we didn't coin the term belief." There is no way to anticipate the way people have responded to the show, or specifically to that sign and that word. A throwaway visual prop from a first draft became the series' de facto logo and a genuine cultural symbol of optimism. The show debuted in August 2020 at the height of the pandemic, at a moment when a large portion of the audience genuinely needed that word on a wall. In the series, the sign serves as a through line for several key character moments: Ted hanging it, Keeley helping straighten it, Nate ripping it down in his worst moment, and Ted tearing his own copy in Season 3. The show keeps returning to it precisely because Sudeikis typed it without overthinking it. The real stadium behind that locker room was hiding its own secret the entire time. Number 8. The fictional AFC Richmond plays its home matches at a fictional ground called Nelson Road, which the show refers to as the Dog Track. It looks entirely convincing as a real English football stadium. That is because it is one. Nelson Road is actually Selhurst Park, home of Premier League club Crystal Palace in South London. The visual parallels run deeper than the location. AFC Richmond's red, blue, and yellow kit and their animal-themed nickname echo Crystal Palace's branding closely enough that the club has acknowledged the connection on its official social media accounts. The production found creative workarounds for away matches. An episode set at Everton's Goodison Park, which is located in Liverpool, was shot entirely at Fulham's Craven Cottage in West London to avoid the cost of traveling north. The Fulham club crest is reportedly still visible above the turnstiles if you know where to look. FC Richmond's training ground is the Sky X Community Stadium, home of non-league club Hayes and Yeading United. Interior locker room and office scenes were filmed at West London Film Studios. Crowd scenes were frequently supplemented with CGI to fill the stands. Production designer Paul Cripps, who had taken a break from the industry to teach before being drawn back by the scripts, helped build the visual identity of a club that feels completely real and technically does not exist anywhere. Every single away match at a northern stadium in this show is secretly West London. All right, we're at the halfway mark, and things are about to get even wilder. Before we hit the top 7, I want to hear from you. What's your favorite Ted Lasso moment? Drop it in the comments. And if you're enjoying this, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help the channel grow. Number 7. Juno Temple never auditioned for the role of Keeley Jones. Jason Sudeikis offered her the part by text message after she had worked with Olivia Wilde on Vinyl and made an impression on him, including at a karaoke outing. He has said in interviews that you can learn a lot about someone by the way they do karaoke. Temple thought he had texted the wrong person since she was not known for comedy. Sudeikis coached her through the nerves, reportedly telling her to just be exactly as you would be as Keeley, and it will all fall into place. Here is the other half of this story. The character shares her first name with British model and actress Keeley Hazel, and that is not a coincidence. Hazel has written in her memoir that she auditioned multiple rounds for the role of Keeley Jones, reached near the top of the consideration list, and ultimately did not get the part. She was offered the smaller recurring role of Bex instead. The character is named after one person who auditioned and did not get the role, while the actress who plays her was cast by text, without a single formal audition. There is a lot of show business compressed into that one casting story. Keeley's effortless on-screen warmth is, as Sudeikis essentially requested, Juno Temple being told to just be herself. The next casting decision also rewrote a character on the spot. Number 6. Hannah Waddingham was not the obvious choice to play Rebecca Welton. According to casting director Theo Park, the production had considered more internationally established names, and none of them quite worked. When Waddingham came in, Park has said it all made sense. She had spent her career primarily on the West End and was not, in her own estimation, getting much traction on British television. The push that helped seal the casting came from an unexpected source. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, the Game of Thrones showrunners who had worked with Waddingham, sent an email on her behalf that reportedly read something like, "What are we even discussing here?" Sudeikis embraced her immediately. Previous productions had asked Waddingham to remove her heels. Sudeikis had no interest in that. When she asked half-jokingly whether Rebecca was a singer, Sudeikis reportedly muttered, "She does now," and wrote her 4-octave voice into the show. Those musical moments exist solely because of an improvised promise made during a casting conversation. Waddingham won the Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series. She had described herself, at the time of casting, as someone who could not get arrested on British television. The character bent to fit the actress, not the reverse, and the prop that brings her and Ted together every morning was far less enjoyable to film than it looks. Number 5. Every morning in the early episodes, a little pink box appears on Rebecca's desk. Ted bakes shortbread biscuits, leaves them without explanation, and their quiet ritual becomes the show's most tender, ongoing symbol of a friendship forming in plain sight. The visual is warm. The taste on set, reportedly, was not. According to accounts from the production, the actual biscuits used during filming were described as less than delicious in practice. The performances of pure bliss were, at least in part, genuine acting work. Apple TV Plus eventually released an official 4-ingredient shortbread recipe after Season 2, responding to the considerable audience demand for something they had been watching characters enjoy for 2 seasons. Hannah Waddingham has spoken about the warmth of the biscuit scenes, with Sudeikis being genuine even when the product itself was falling short of what the moment required. She has also described the physical comedy challenges of Season 2, particularly scenes opposite Nick Mohammed, where both actors had to keep their eyelines just slightly off the other person's face to avoid breaking entirely. It is a small detail in the broader production, but it captures something true about how Ted Lasso operates as a show. The warmth is entirely real. Some of the ingredients are a prop, and underneath all that sweetness, the writers had been hiding something considerably darker from the very beginning. Number 4. The panic attack in the karaoke bar. The reluctant therapy sessions with Dr. Sharon Fieldstone. The slow accumulation of evidence that Ted's relentless optimism is a survival mechanism rather than a personality. None of this looked like what a feel-good football comedy was going to deliver in Season 2. That was entirely the point. Jason Sudeikis has described the show's approach to mental health as a Trojan horse, using that specific phrase in an interview with Us Weekly, explaining there are bigger issues in this fun, silly little comedy show. The intention was to deliver genuine conversation about therapy and emotional avoidance inside packaging that would reach people who might never actively seek those conversations out. The most concentrated version arrives in Season 2's episode, No Weddings and a Funeral, written by Jane Becker and directed by M.J. Delaney. Ted reveals in therapy that his father died by suicide when Ted was 16 years old. It is the episode that won Jason Sudeikis the Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. The show has received widespread accounts from viewers crediting it with encouraging them to try therapy for the first time. That response was not accidental. The creators built that outcome into the architecture of the series deliberately. On rewatch, Ted's unshakable positivity registers as something clearly costing him. And by Season 3, the personal cost became harder to keep separate from what was happening off-screen. Number 3. Season 3 of Ted Lasso arrived in 2023 to a notably different kind of reception. The episode runtime stretched between 44 and 50 minutes. The subplots multiplied. Critics who had championed the show through its first 2 seasons began writing about diminishing returns and a season that felt like it was pulling in too many directions simultaneously. Some of the internal turbulence had a documented source. Hannah Waddingham has spoken openly about the Season 3 production delays being connected to Jason Sudeikis' endless rewrites. Co-creator Bill Lawrence confirmed in interviews that he stepped back considerably for the final season, describing it as healthy for me to let go because Sudeikis had earned the right to land the show on his own terms. Sudeikis' very public separation from Olivia Wilde played out between seasons 2 and 3, and the final season was difficult for critics and audiences to watch without noticing the echoes. The season 3 premiere features a moment where Ted reacts to news of his ex-partner's new relationship, and critics noted that the season seemed to carry a rawness that mirrored what was happening in Sudeikis' actual life. He has not explicitly drawn that line himself, but it was hard for many viewers not to draw it. Real life and creative control reshaped the final season's tone in ways that were visible on screen. And tucked inside all of that emotional weight was the show's most carefully constructed single scene. Number 2. The darts scene in the season 1 finale is the moment the entire show announces what it is capable of. Rupert, Rebecca's vindictive ex-husband, challenges Ted to a pub game expecting an easy win. What follows is one of television's finest slow reveals. Ted lets Rupert believe he is winning. Then he reveals mid-game that he played darts every Sunday with his father from age 10 until he was 16, when his father passed away. He wins cleanly. As he wraps up, he attributes his philosophy of empathy to a quote he saw painted on a wall: "Be curious, not judgmental." The line is attributed to Walt Whitman in the scene. The problem is that it is almost certainly not a genuine Whitman quote. Literary researchers have been unable to trace it to any of Whitman's published writing, and the attribution is widely considered an example of a compelling phrase being attached to a famous name after the fact. The show leans into that ambiguity. There is something thematically appropriate about Ted building his worldview on something he read on a wall and took on faith, without verifying the source. Sudeikis and Anthony Head, who plays Rupert, filmed the scene with care. On rewatch, the grief over Ted's father connects directly to the panic attacks and therapy arc arriving 2 seasons later. The show buried the root of Ted's pain in plain sight, inside a pub game, a full year before it was ready to name it. Number 1. Ted Lasso arrived in August 2020 into a world that needed it. The pandemic had settled in, isolation was the norm, and Apple TV Plus was a streaming service still searching for the show that would make the subscription feel essential. What the series delivered exceeded anything the platform could have reasonably expected. Season 1 received 20 Emmy nominations, which was at the time the most of any freshman comedy series in television history, surpassing the previous record of 19 held by Glee since 2010. The season won 7 Emmys, including Outstanding Comedy Series, Lead Actor for Sudeikis, Supporting Actor for Goldstein, and Supporting Actress for Waddingham. Season 2 won Outstanding Comedy Series again, making Ted Lasso the first comedy to win back-to-back in that category since Modern Family a decade earlier. According to Nielsen data cited by Deadline, Ted Lasso was the most watched streaming original of 2023, generating 16.9 billion viewing minutes across all 24 episodes, outpacing its nearest competitor by 2.5 billion minutes. The Season 3 finale drew 529 million viewing minutes in its debut week, per Variety citing Nielsen data. Season 4 was confirmed by Apple TV Plus in April 2026 and is scheduled to premiere August 5, 2026, with Ted coaching a second division women's football team. All of it traces back to a 3-minute commercial nobody expected to matter, a pickup basketball game that forged a creative partnership, and a show that bet everything on the proposition that kindness could be the whole point. Ted Lasso overcame a 2-year dormant script, a buffoonish commercial origin, a budget that faked northern stadiums in West London, a staff writer who secretly taped himself to play the show's angriest character, and a final season reshaped by rewrites and real-life heartbreak. None of it was guaranteed. A softened character, a text message audition, an improvised casting promise, and a first draft doodle all had to land exactly right. The show that resulted changed what a feel-good comedy was allowed to carry inside it and gave a generation of viewers a word to tape above their own doors. If this video surprised you, drop your favorite fact in the comments. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who loves this show as much as you do. And as always, be curious, not judgmental. We'll see you next time.